Welcome to the Chronic Spoonful podcast, where we discuss real life with real chronic illness. Each week, we'll cover an aspect of real life spoony living and what that can mean for different chronic illnesses. We hope this will be a place you can go for updated spoony info and where you'll find humor, because, we're a little crazy, important information, and community. As a disclaimer, we just want to remind you that yes, we'll be talking about chronic illness and health information, but we are not your doctor. Everyone's chronic illness is different, and we are absolutely not MDs, so we are not qualified to give you medical advice. We're going to tell you unequivocally to discuss anything we talk about on this podcast with your doctor. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to part 3 of our Cannabis and Chronic Illness series. We are so excited to continue this series, and in the past 2 episodes with Michael and Holly, we have learned so much about cannabis. Seriously, I think our heads are going to explode. It's just, I don't even know what to do with all the information that we've learned so far. And I am so excited to continue to talk about this. I think I'm talking about this in my daily life all the time. I don't know, people might already be annoyed with me with how much I'm talking about cannabis now. But we are continuing on with Cristina Montoya today, who's going to talk to us more about nutrition and our diets and how to incorporate cannabis into that area of our lives. She has a fantastic story. Christina actually is a registered dietitian, which is extremely exciting for all of us because, we're always kind of playing with our diets and what we eat and trying to get healthier, because we all know that helps us. But now we're going to add cannabis into that. And oh my gosh, this is just amazing. But she also is a holistic cannabis practitioner. She's got her certificate, and she's going to talk a little bit more about that. And talk, more about her autoimmune story and how she, in her relationship with cannabis. And I'm going to let her tell her story and a little bit more about her qualifications, because she can probably tell it a little bit better than I can. But I am just I have been waiting for this episode, Christina, because I am so excited to talk to you. Not just because your story is amazing, but because I think, I have so many conversations about my diet and what to eat and how to be, how to decrease the inflammation in my body. So I think this is going to be a fantastic episode. So welcome, Christina.
Welcome.
And, we're excited to have you. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and tell us your story a little bit.
Oh, thank you, Kelly and Nicole, for having me. I'm really excited. Let's see how this goes today. My story. Well, my story begins in Colombia. So I'm from Colombia, and I had rheumatoid arthritis for almost 20 years now. I was diagnosed in Colombia, and I was one of those with the pre-biologic kind of phase, right? So I actually developed joint deformities, and so my rheumatoid arthritis was classified as severe, and so it was very debilitating. I was only 21 years old when I was diagnosed. And I was just actually finishing I was on my 4th year of nutrition and dietetics in Colombia. And it was I remember when they were trying to figure out what I had. And my first patient as an intern in a hospital was a patient with lupus. And this patient was 33 years old, and she was terminally ill with end-stage kidney disease. Mm-hmm. I looked at her. She was 33, one child. I ran off that room crying. I was bawling, and I went to my preceptor. I can't do this. I can't do this. That was the one morning I struggled to comb my hair, to even get to the hospital to start my practicum. It was physically, literally painful, and everything, the uncertainty, you're young, what my future holds, what am I studying for, what am I going to do with my life, why am I even here?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So that was that was really what I remember feeling when I was 21 and diagnosed and almost about to finish my career. But I was determined that I wanted to graduate with my amazing classmates, and I pumped up with prednisone.
Oh, prednisone. We all know about prednisone. Nicole has a really good relationship with prednisone.
Yes.
And so it's like, okay, love it or hate it when you need it. So I remember my godmother actually said, "You're gonna look amazing at your graduation." My mom got me a beautiful dress, and they spray tanned me and they put me on heels, and I was like high on prednisone, and I had a blast.
Oh, the blessings. The blessing, then the curse. There you go.
Yes, the blessing and the curse. So I didn't get discouraged, but along with rheumatoid arthritis, I also discovered that I had Sjogren's syndrome. And so that was another autoimmune condition that I think is more dismissed, I guess, because there's not an actual treatment for it. But always since I was a kid, since I was 8 years old, I didn't cry. I didn't have saliva. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't enjoy my food. I had digestive issues. I would fall and I would get hurt. And I was like, where is this coming from? So that all came to being diagnosed when they put all the puzzles together when I got RA. So those two conditions have been really part of my life, I guess, most of my life. But the chronic pain definitely came more, I will say more from the rheumatoid arthritis. And so I remember even being in Colombia, we have a similar system that in the US. So I had assigned a clinic. And the pain was so severe that they will see me coming into the door of the clinic. They will hook me up with an IV with morphine and just lay me there for 4 or 5 hours. It was just like that. So they got to know me. They tried their best with what they had and the guidelines at the time. And then magically, because I was a chronically ill person, where am I gonna meet the love of my life? On internet. So that happened 20 years ago. Somebody, my husband, we met on Yahoo chats. Oh my God, a dial-up.
I remember that. Yes, yeah. I remember using that in AOL.
Yep.
It was my favorite.
You were one of those people that met in chat rooms.
That's so awesome.
And and it was pretty kind of dramatic because the year that he was going to come to see me for the first time, I was fine. He's Muslim, and that was like shortly after 9/11, and he was not allowed to come into the country past the US. And so it was so much drama. So he was sent back to Canada. And then the year after, I got diagnosed. And so I said to him, you don't need to come to see me. You can find someone healthy, honestly, right? Like you don't need to sign up for this.
You're such a self-sacrificer. There you go. Go find someone healthy. I love you that much. Oh.
And but he said, no, I like you and I want to be with you. And he did, and he pushed through, and he said, I'm gonna bring you to Canada, and I know you're gonna get good health care, proper care here. Please come. And so he brought me here, and in fact, yes, like I received really good care, and I have ever since I came to Canada. And yeah, so he's been my rock, honestly, we've known almost for 20 years. Like he's known me, from since I was diagnosed.
See, everyone, even with chronic illness, you can find love.
That's right. That's wonderful.
So there you go. And so there's where it comes the funny part. So when I came to Canada, right, that's 2007, first thing he told me, let's go get you medical cannabis. I said, what? Are you crazy? What are you talking about? I said, like, do you want me to go back to Colombia? Like, I'm just moving, and so it was not a conversation I'm going to have. So we can really talk about that, but later. But the thing is that that's how I kind of came to Canada. So I did complete my degree in Colombia, nutrition dietetics. I graduated, but then in Canada, I needed to complete some further studies to get my registration. So I had to study like 2 more years to get it. So basically, I studied like nutrition for almost like 6 years.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And then I had to take the exam and do some practicum here to gain some Canadian experience. And so that's what it makes a difference when you see a registered dietitian when it comes to the education that they have to go through and experience. And they also, that they're able to apply some medical therapy nutrition as compared to unregulated nutritional professionals who maybe might do maybe a program of 1 year, but they really don't understand what's going on with the body with other conditions, right? If it's
Right.
someone. So that's what really marks the difference. As a regulated health professional, we need to be regulated by a college, and we are here to protect the public. So we ought to make sure that we are serving the public well, not just because we want to sell a program and this is going to make me rich. It really is more a responsible, really care for our patients.
Right. So yeah, there's a lot more that goes into being a registered dietitian than, say, a nutritionist. With a registered dietitian, you can I believe with the registered dietitian, you can actually put together meal plans for people, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a registered dietitian, you, again, like you did the preparation, the studies for 4 years, that you do your internship, so you're able to work in a hospital when you know. So if and recommends like the meal plans, provide some medical therapy, medical nutritional therapy. We can do like an enteral feeding, parenteral nutrition. So there's really more involvement and with the healthcare team. And so there's like we're in part of that circle of care, or we provide diabetes education. I was at one point working at a hospital where I obtained my diabetes certification, and I was actually given an authorization by the physicians where I could prescribe insulin and medications for diabetes. But you need to have that training, and that's not going to be able to be but a nutritionist or a holistic nutritionist that completed a 1-year program.
Right.
So that's what really kind of marks the difference, that there's just that's responsibility for you as a human being. You're not just a number, right? Or a profit. Or that's how I see my patients. I see them as a human beings, that they're suffering. They're suffering.
I think that's really important when we're looking at chronic illness, because when you're looking at a dietitian, they're looking really at you as they should be looking at you. Let's be clear. They should be looking at you as an individual. And, this goes back to one of our full prior episodes and things we say in almost every episode, that, you should be working with people that see you as an individual and see your needs as individual needs. And especially when it comes to diet and nutrition, you work with your patients on their individual needs, because as we all know, with chronic illness, our chronic illnesses affect us all in somewhat different ways. We may have similar diagnoses. Like I may have EDS, my friend Rachel has EDS, another person has EDS, but they're affecting us all in an individual sort of way. We don't have the same symptoms all the time. And so I may need something in my diet that someone else doesn't need. Like I can't eat lettuce. So I need a diet that completely removes lettuce, rice. What else can I eat? Nicole, there's a whole list of things.
There's a whole list.
There's a whole list of things that I can't eat that are actually very nutritious and leaves me with limited, like I can't eat certain meats. I can't, because I get so sick. So I have you can't just give me some random diet that goes, well, EDS patients should eat these things. Okay. I can't eat half the things on the list.
It's like an individualized plan is whatever.
Yeah. So I need to see a dietitian, because I have to have a very individualized plan. A nutritionist probably isn't going to be my best bet. I think that's why someone like you who does see their patients as individuals is so important.
And it's such a great point, because there are sessions what I have with my patients where they honestly it's not even about nutrition. It's about, you're feeling pain and you want to be heard. You want to be understood that I'm feeling pain and I'm not imagining it, right? Like it's not in my head.
Yes.
And when they tell me I'm in pain, I totally believe it. And they said, but then when they said to me, I could see on their face, and they said like, how are you feeling? I'm okay. And I said, you don't have to tell me that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to tell me you're okay. That you can tell me I feel like shit.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And I totally get it. So and I think just even hearing that, it releases that anxiety.
Yes.
And so anything that comes after, it feels like, okay, you're going to absorb better, right? Because someone is acknowledging how I'm feeling. And so that's what I love about my work, and specifically with chronic pain patients, or really chronic pain patients is what I'm focusing more lately.
And I agree. I think we're so used to trying to be normal for everybody's, because we don't want to be a burden to everyone, that we're used to telling people we're okay. That we walk into doctors' offices, we walk into our dietitian, we walk into physical therapy, and they're like, how are you feeling? We're like, I'm okay. It's just an automatic response.
Yeah.
I'm okay. And it's like, no, we're not actually okay. We're just okay for us. Today I'm a 5 in my pain scale, but a person who walked in off the street, if they were put in my body today, would be like, are you kidding me? I'm at a 10. 10.
Yes. Yes. That's so true. Because I say like pain is subjective, right? It's so
yes,
it's just like we talk about nutrition that is personalized. Pain is the same.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Yes.
It's when I was having my child, I went to the doctor and they did a C-section. And so everybody was looking after, how are you feeling? How was the C-section? Like the incision? I said, honestly, feels like a paper cut. Get rid of my pain from the arthritis. Like that's what's killing me. And they kept asking me about the incision, and I said, forget about the incision.
Yes. It's like my pain in my bones and my body is worse.
Yeah. Anyone who hasn't experienced chronic pain does not understand.
They do not get it.
Like this is a minor pain in comparison to how my entire body feels right now.
So that's what I said, then I realized to myself, I said, this is, I can offer to my clients that maybe other practitioners, as sympathetic they can be, right? They're empathetic, but they're not feeling pain. They don't know what it's like to live in pain. They don't know. And so that I think just makes a difference.
Absolutely.
I'm feeling it. Like the more patients I see, the more they can relate to me, the more they stick to it, they make it the changes. And I said, wow, this is fabulous. So it's so rewarding to really do what I do. And then when I started learning about cannabis, oh gosh.
So tell us a little bit about your relationship with cannabis, because your story about your relationship to cannabis it's on your blog, but tell us your story, because it is extremely fascinating how you got from what your original opinion of cannabis was from how you grew up to where you are now is quite a journey. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it really is a journey. Like I said, I was born in Colombia and grew up in the whole like narco drug cartels era. So the late 80s, early 90s. So I was a teenager. So at that point, when even just the mention of marijuana, which we will talk about later, for my mom and my family will just ring the bells. It was like, no, that's not going to happen. Like honestly, we got slapped just mentioning the word. So obviously for what we were going through in a country and being young, and so my parents were right? So it was attached, that problem that we were dealing with at that time. So it just became so embedded that I'm never going to touch. I hated the smell. I hated it. I hated it with a passion. The moment I smelled it, it gave me my stomach turned. That's how much I hated it.
Because your friends and family were involved in all this, correct? When you were growing up.
Yes. So my father really didn't live with him that much because my mom left him for obvious reasons. But he was involved at that time in the late 80s, dealing with marijuana. So he was a drug dealer, like a small scale, not like the ones they show in Narcos, but a small scale. But it's still very dramatic until my mom find out what he was doing. He will make my mom roll the joints so he could sell them. And so that story, like for my mom, that's what scarred her for life.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Right, because she associated not only the marijuana, and I'm saying using that word marijuana because at that time was really damaging to what it did to my mom, but the concept that she had, because she related that marijuana with abuse, with an abusive husband, with a drug dealer, with someone who wouldn't care for their family. So that definitely was attached. We had a very negative connotation to marijuana, because at that, for her, that's what it was. It was marijuana. It was something damaging. And so when I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, it was funny because one of the friends who, they have these young guys who will smoke the joints in the neighborhood. And so I was the good kid. I was the good girl, I was studious. And they saw me talking to this guy. And so the whole neighbor was like, why are you talking to that guy? And so he gave me some of my weed, and I was so embarrassed. My face was like, what am I gonna do? Because at that point we didn't know much about the medicine, but I think because we still have kind of the native and indigenous type of influence. So from my grandmother's family, they told us by that infusing so the cannabis into alcohol, and then you let it sit for many weeks, like 3 or 4 weeks, then you will rub it into your joints. We didn't drink it, but that's what they started me, like my first experience with cannabis or medicinal cannabis was that advice from one of my grandmother's family members. So that's how it began, but it's still, I wasn't too convinced. I say, no. So it's not gonna happen. So when I mentioned, and the fact that they saw me with that guy, I was like, oh my God, my reputation is like.
Yeah, I'm sure they weren't too happy.
But I did have another experience in college. We were super goody. But then we said, we gotta do something crazy. And I said, what is it? Let's make brownies. Special brownies. Oh,
you're very bad. You're very bad.
Oh, let's make cannabis. Oh, okay, the brownies. So we made cannabis. We were like 5 of us. And so there we go. We filled up with, oh my God, we didn't know how much we put in the brownies. None of us had ever had cannabis.
Oh no.
And we started eating it, right? So nothing. Oh my God, but what's happening? Nothing's happening. An hour. Gosh, we go get beers. Oh my God.
Oh no.
Oh,
so we got like I don't know, maybe a few sips of beers. Really, we didn't. And then one of my friends like, this is not doing anything. Let's just keep going. Like, so he had like a half of the brownies.
No.
So you guys, you know where I'm getting with this, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What was very amazing is that each one of us ate like from the brownie, same ingredients. You consume different quantities, but we all had different reactions. I got very funny, just giggling. Everything was funny. My other friend was super angry. It's like, Christina, fix the room, clean up, like fix. Your mom is gonna come home. And I was like, shut up. And then the other one just completely, like, she just went like just
That's
passed
me.
out.
Passed out. That's me.
I'd have been the friend that would have passed out. Yep.
Just completely passed out. And the other one was the hallucinated one. He was in a journey out of space. Oh my goodness.
Because he ate half the pan of brownies.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can imagine he was messed up.
And the guy made a mess at my house because after, you know, when he came, violent vomit, like he just felt like horrible. So when I saw that, is I'm never touching that ever again.
oh my gosh.
So there you go. Like, I'm not touching that. What is crazy? So that was my experience, but I'm glad I had it, and I'll explain why later. I came to Canada, so I said to you what I told my husband. I'm not touching that. But that all changed actually maybe about 5 years ago when I was also diagnosed with fibromyalgia. There was no medication that could really calm that freaking pain.
There isn't. Like it's hard. I mean, fibro pain it's very complicated.
Yeah.
And that's an understatement.
Yeah.
I'm understating it quite a bit. It's another disease that hits people very different. Like each person is very individualized.
Very much so.
And it's still very misunderstood. And only until recently it's being really recognized as a disease, as a condition. But before it was almost, it's like a woman's disease. It's in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's from your hormones. There's all kinds of crazy stuff they came up with to dismiss the disease.
So when that was the one condition that it started changing my views on cannabis. Definitely, because the pain that I used to get was this burning pain that you were like burning needles fucking my bones inside from my hands up to my shoulders, and you can probably relate to that. And it made me cry, like literally cry, and I wrote because it was a pain, unbearable pain I never really experienced in my life. So that's when I started hearing about a clinic, so cannabis clinic, and I said, yeah, if I get cannabis, it has to go through like the legal means. And I said, it's someone who can assess me, can understand my conditions, and they are aware of what maybe interactions may have with other medications. So because I have that maybe medical background, I had that understanding that I needed that support. So I started going to the clinic, and so I was advised to use some vape, the flower and oils at that time. And I admit I still was not very happy about it. I didn't like the taste of the oil. The smell really threw me off. I didn't stay long for it. It was on and off. So I said, this is not working. I'm not really, not at all. So again, maybe about 3 years ago, I still had a very bad fibromyalgia attacks. And I said, okay, this time I'm serious. I'm gonna get in this. I went back to the clinic, and actually I did stick to the recommendations. So I took my oils as they recommended. I'm still not crazy about vaping. I wasn't very good at smoking or anything like that, so I didn't really try that. But very consistent with my oils. I have no evidence for this, so please do not take it because there's still no evidence about pregnancy and fertility and cannabis. But for 15 years, I couldn't have kids. Like I never got pregnant. 6 months after taking like cannabis consistently, feeling much better from the pain, the fibromyalgia pain pretty much disappeared. I got pregnant.
Oh, how
what?
Cool.
What? Is that a side effect of cannabis?
That is amazing.
I mean, you're right. There's no studies on it, but you don't know what benefits it reaped on your body.
Cannabis is very healing. So, wow.
Yeah.
Was I enjoying sex more? Ooh, you never know.
Never know. Could have relaxed your muscles. Could have done some things.
Serious seriously. So that was like an eye opener. And so obviously I got pregnant and they tell me no more cannabis. I was like, why? So now I want it.
Well, yeah, that's the point where you're like, okay, do I really want, like, come on, baby. Like, just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride.
I know. I was like, I didn't even know that I was pregnant. And I had just taken like my first bite of like, I was like 50 milligrams of THC chocolate. As I got, it's a baby. And I was like, that's why I thought I was pregnant. I said, baby, be well. And nothing
You'll
happened.
be fine. You'll be fine.
So then again, that's what it really changed my mind, because once I stopped cannabis, because when I got pregnant, so all the cannabis I stopped it like cold turkey. Jesus Christ, that fibromyalgia came back with a vengeance. Vengeance. So my first 2 months, like a pregnancy, it was absolutely painful. It was very painful, and I missed my cannabis.
I bet.
I'm sure you did.
So bad. I was like, I wish I could have it, but obviously, because it's something that still we don't know. And I said, I don't want to take chances.
Yeah.
So I didn't take it. So then fast forward, I had my baby. And then, like I mentioned, with rheumatoid arthritis, we tend to go into a remission. And it was a wonderful 2 months that I have out of my pregnancy. And they said that it's expected that maybe you will get a flare-up after six to 8 weeks, right? Approximately.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mine came just the day after delivering the baby.
Oh, no.
Wow. Oh, that's awful.
It was really awful. And it was awful that it was completely dismissed by the healthcare team. And I still couldn't believe it. And I said, really? But at that point, what they gave me, OxyContin. Okay. And I said, so how am I supposed to feed my baby if I'm like, and I said, okay. So I had to be ready. So that was again, another, it took, after 2 weeks, I had to go back to my medications. I had to stop breastfeeding, because I had to choose between being well and being there for my baby, because my baby not only needed milk, he also needed me to dress him and, take care of him. And also, so I had to make that difficult choice between breastfeeding, because as a dietitian, I said I had to breastfeed my baby, like no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. But then I had that unbearable pain that my rheumatologist said, Christina, he will be completely fine if you like give formula, and you are going to have more energy to enjoy motherhood and to enjoy your baby. Yes. And it was a very difficult decision, but I'm glad I made it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your decision. I think it's a very difficult decision. I think a lot of new moms want to breastfeed because it's a natural thing you want to do, but we do have great formulas out there. And I think for people with chronic illness, that is a choice you have to make. Do you want to be there for your baby, or do you want to breastfeed?
And they make women feel ashamed. I've noticed that a lot in society. It's like, oh, you didn't breastfeed? Like, I mean, you did the most horrendous thing you could have ever done. It's ridiculous. The baby doesn't necessarily bond just because it's getting milk from you. The baby is bonding to you because you're holding it. It's ridiculous.
Well, we have in Santa Monica here in California, we have there's an organization that teaches moms how to breastfeed, because you get 2 minutes in the hospital where they try to teach you how to breastfeed. And that just doesn't you're not going to learn. So they have an entire organization where you can go and learn how to breastfeed your baby.
That's good.
And it's great. I mean, it's great because a lot of moms also feel ashamed that their baby isn't taking to them and they're home and they don't know what to do. And so I think, this place is a wonderful organization, but people shouldn't also feel any shame in saying, you know what, I just need to go to formula. This isn't working.
Exactly.
Or I have to take my medications to be there for my child and I'm going to go to formula. That's all okay. It's all okay. Everyone's a little bit different. Yeah. And in your case, Christina, that's okay to go back to your medications and be healthy for your baby. I was a formula baby. My mom couldn't breastfeed because
My mom couldn't either.
She had some surgeries and they didn't want her breastfeeding. They didn't feel that was okay. They were worried about her. I mean, I'm probably revealing too much about my mom and she would hate me for doing this, but they didn't want her breastfeeding. They were worried about the surgery she had and the breast milk that she would be giving us. So my sister and I both were formula babies.
There's no shame in that.
There's
I
no
mean,
shame in it.
you want to be as healthy as you possibly can be to take care of your child.
Yeah.
And I think my rheumatologist was right. It was with all the hormones, right? Like I said, at the end of the world.
The rushing through your system. Yeah.
It's like, no, but then as I started to realize that the inflammation kicked in, that it was affecting my hips, it was affecting like just my overall well-being. And that I needed to get cortisol shots. Like I got like 4 cortisol shots right after, like 2 months after getting pregnant. Like it was a very, and then I had complications from the rheumatoid arthritis. I have congestive heart failure. I have pulmonary edema. So it was just so much that breastfeeding, I was thinking, I guess at that point, it was like really, really
even more
like formula. Here.
Yeah, for real.
Put it in the bottle with the right temperature water. Fine.
And it's so now it's not like I'm promoting formula. Like if you're well enough or you're willing to maybe take a little bit of that pain, or if your pain is maybe bearable to you, and you still want to have that connection with your baby, please go ahead, honestly. But if, again, like you're saying, if your choice is to improve your pain, because remember, many of us have to return to work. So we need that time to recover, to be well, because now we're going to be working moms, we're going to be moms, we're going to be looking after, it's still the woman's role still hasn't changed. Like we get more support from men. My husband is completely supportive. Like he does his laundry. Like he's amazing. He cooks for me. Like when I'm not well. Like he's amazing. But it's still, as a mom, I don't know. It's a woman. I'm Latina. Like it's just so nurturing that you have to be there for your kid. So when you realize that it's that you're kind of taxing, like you have to think of a little bit ahead. You're returning to work, you want to make sure that you're building up your strength, that you are going to now concentrate for your child, your children, now work. You want to have a balance of your mental health, physical health. There's so many things that we need to think about.
So afterward, they gave you opiates. Did you return to using cannabis to help with the inflammation, to help with all of that, instead of using the opiates? How did you make another transition?
Yeah, so I probably maybe 5 or 6 months after I was a little bit more stable, after all the kind of my side effects from my baby's delivery, I went back to the clinic and I said, I want to restart. And so I started a regime again with the cannabis oils. I started with mainly the oils I use, but I started giving a chance to the vaping and tried the dry flower. And I started to notice that a more immediate effect when I took the flower. Mm-hmm. And so for like a maintenance, the oils were amazing. But if I was starting to feel a little bit of like more pain or uncomfortable, or I wanted to maybe that quick kind of kind of kick in so I could sleep a little bit faster, I will vape. So that's when I started to incorporate a little bit more of that, and then more massage oils. So like with my husband, we started like just do more massage. It's interesting because he also has a little bit of osteoarthritis because he's a contractor. So what he does in massage with the cannabis oil, it actually helps relieve the pain in his joints. So I in a way, like cannabis has brought us back together. Like it has improved our relationship for some reason. The more like connection.
That's so cool.
Oh, I love that.
When the clinic gave you the oils, Christina, are those edibles? I mean, did they give you like oil to put in your food, or did you just put it under your tongue?
Under my tongue. So typically that's what they do. Like you put it under your tongue. That's ideally. So what they initially, right? And I still kind of don't like those concepts about sativa and sativa and indica. And you know what? I think that's kind of old school now, because now we know that the flowers are mostly coming from hybrids, right?
Right.
So might be maybe sativa dominant and might be indica dominant. And I think Michael, I believe, was the one from the first episode. He explained very well how there are other components in the flower that can also interact with that and can enhance that the medicinal benefit. So that's I started to maybe experiment a little bit more in terms of the different products. And that's what it kind of leads me to explain a little bit how things work in Canada. So in Canada, we do have the, cannabis is legal, like a recreational, it was legal in 2018. And, but then the medical cannabis has been around like for a couple of decades or more. Yeah, probably from the late 90s, I believe, or 2000s. So it's been there for a while. But so when you go to a family physician now, and that consultation is covered by the OHIP. So that's actually the Ontario Health, like the provincial program. So we don't have to pay out of pocket to see the physician that prescribes or that recommends cannabis. So you go through these clinics. They do like a full assessment. When it was face to face, I liked it better because they used to take the blood pressure. There was like a little bit more details in terms of the assessments. Then after like a nurse kind of assesses you, they send you to the physician, and then this physician kind of reviews your medical history, and it starts to maybe look at your medications, if there's any interactions or maybe other conditions. And then they'll make a suggestion in terms of the amounts that maybe allowed per day. And they create a medical document. It's not called a prescription because there's not a DIN, right? It's not a pharmaceutical. So it's called a medical document. So this medical document is transferred to a licensed provider. So when they prepare the medical document, they actually send it to a cannabis educator, and the cannabis educator, it explains to you how you're going to use the product. So they tell you, okay, so you're gonna use the oil, so use this amount, and this is how you can titrate it up every couple of days. This is how much you can use at night, in the morning, maybe this is how you can use it. So they give you very basic information, like a cannabis education information, some of the side effects that you may experience. I do find that they're very conservative at starting off you on only CBD dominant products. So they're very cautious. I still feel they're very conservative in how they manage, but I think it's a good start, at least the process to walk you through, right? And then, so once that document is prepared, it's sent out to a licensed provider or a company that has all access to all the cannabis products. So you can purchase your products online. So the doctor or the nurse practitioner may suggest, yeah, you can have this oil and we recommend this. But when you go on the site, you can buy whatever you want, really.
Oh, wow.
Because you have a daily allowance or a monthly allowance. So then like it could be like from 1 gram to like 5 grams of cannabis a day. But they're even capping that, but that's a whole new story. Like they're actually maybe telling the physician, hey, be careful of how much you're actually prescribing, right? Is the patient actually using it? But that's like a different story. But just like the overview is that once they hook you up with a licensed provider, you can purchase your own cannabis. And then they set up follow-ups, maybe every month, every couple of months, or every 3 months, and so they can renew the medical documents. That's in general how it works in Canada, or at least in Canada generally that's how it works, or in Ontario, and that's been the process. But there has been some caveats. So as I started to learn more about cannabis, I started like asking more questions, right? And then, so tell me, okay, what if I don't want to use the oil? Can you tell me about the chemical? Can I use more products with THC? I don't know, maybe not. Like there's still a lot of red tape around the use of THC. So they push for the CBD products more when it comes to like the medical cannabis patients, when you go through the cannabis clinics. And so I'm still searching for a clinic that can really see a more holistic approach. So you see, we're still struggling. Like we still don't have it perfect. And there's another thing that maybe I can share with you is that when I got hooked up to the licensed provider, the products were so expensive. And I said, how am I going to keep up with this? Yeah, cannabis is a privilege. Access to cannabis is a privilege. Like it's not a right. It's not covered by the health insurance. I started asking as I learned more. Okay, so is it just the one licensed provider that I'm able to sign up for? No, you can divide that up, and they can actually send it to different clinics. But guess what? They are favoring the ones that they're getting more kind of money back. Mm-hmm. And I was, that's disgusting.
I mean, it's expensive here to buy the products. I think that's why, we kind of talked on the prior episodes about, making your own. It's why we promoted, the DIY group, because it is much cheaper to make your own oils, to make your own butter, to make your own products. I don't know about the legalities of that in Canada, but here, if you can get your hands on some flour, you can make a lot of your own stuff.
And salves, lotions, I mean, anything, balms, tinctures. It's wonderful, but it's expensive. And that's the problem. Like when you're first starting out, a lot of people don't know what's going to work for them. So they have to experiment, and that can cost a lot.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I got to a point that it was almost like $300, $400. Like, come on, I have a baby and he's on formula. Like I can't, I have to choose between the formula or cannabis. Like guess what? Right? So I got angry and I said, there's gotta be other options. And they told me, oh yeah, we have one option. It's a Redican. It was like half the price and even less. And I said, what? So that's the little things that when I started just talking to this clinic, it wasn't just this naive patient. I became more empowered medical cannabis patient. So I go to, and I said, well, I can't afford, the oils, like they're working great, but I'm also doing I'm making my own products. And so then the doctor started noticing, oh, you know what, that's great. Like he noted that. And so, because when you make your own products, you can't really measure the concentrations, right? As much as like you will get the oil from the licensed provider and you'd say it's about 20%, or you have 30 milligrams of CBD and 1 ml, right? And so, but when you're making your own, because you're losing so much through extraction and through the carboxylation, unless you have a whole like lab testing toolkit in your home, you really won't know how much the concentration you're actually taking. So that's when I said to them that it kind of takes that extra step to understand how that's gonna work. And we don't have that here. Like it's also the patient experimenting. And I don't think that's fair, because it's like almost like a full blinded in this area and this field.
It has become a burden on the patient to either have the money to buy this, stuff pre-made or have the money to experiment and find what works and make their own. But it does put the burden on us. And I say it all the time. I'm like, we need to push for legalization across the board. We need to push for things to change, and people need to start speaking out, and we need to erase the stigma with cannabis. So this becomes a little bit easier for all of us, but that's going to take time.
But I think we're moving. I feel at least we're moving in the right direction. We are having more conversations. We're moving from the stigma of calling it marijuana, because now we know that's a racist term against like Hispanic. So I don't use that word. It hurts me. So it's cannabis. That's the plant's name, and it's a beautiful plant. It can do wonders for you. Yes. And the thing is, and I always happens to me when it comes to nutrition, it's almost the end of the podcast.
No. We're still going to talk about nutrition. We are still going to get to this.
Keep
this
going.
Is very important.
I love what you're saying.
I mean, you've talked a lot about like how cannabis has helped you. And I think that that's really an important part of all this, because you've gotten to the point where you were using cannabis for your chronic pain. And I really wanted you to tell your story, because I think it was very different from some of the other stories we've heard. But you went and you got your certificate. You got a certificate in holistic. You're a holistic cannabis practitioner. Mm-hmm. And, I saw you posted a couple recipes on your site for using cannabis in food. And I think it's important to talk about, like, you've got this certificate in using cannabis in people's diets and nutrition. How do you work that into your diet and nutrition? You've talked about using oils and things like that, but some people actually like to use it in their food, besides brownies, of course.
Just like infusing their dinner or something. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So it just, again, like to clarify, and it's interesting because I haven't put a lot of my blog about the recipes, because again, in Canada, like regulated health professionals, we still have that little bit of restrictions when it comes to talking about cannabis. And so that's what I kind of took my part and doing my own education. So I always put that disclaimer that if cannabis is the right fit for them, to seek for the competent healthcare provider, or, speaking of physician, a nurse practitioner. In my case, it's like when I'm doing my assessments or my counseling or coaching with my clients, I ask about supplements, I ask about vitamins, but I openly ask about, are you using cannabis? Because I don't want them to feel ashamed that it's just like when I asked them how you feeling, I said, don't tell me I'm okay. Tell me how you really feel. Yeah. And this is how about the same thing with cannabis. So it's surprising that most of the patients that I see, they're actually consuming at some degree, or they have tried cannabis. And so I always, when I provide any recommendations, that please make sure that any recommendations I give, like you also discuss that with your physician, and that is appropriate. And my goal really is to reach out to these physicians and clinics that I can work with them in collaboration, so that we can optimize the treatment. Because I went up to the cannabis clinics and I said, okay, they're taking cannabis, they're helping with the pain. Guess what? They're making edibles, they're making their gummies, they're making cookies, and it makes them feel good. It makes it medicinal, but it's also pro-inflammatory. So you are kind of contradicting the effect of cannabis. So if we're having our gummies, we're full of sugars, there's evidence that increases inflammation. Yes. So even though it's pleasant, it's easier, right? It's discreet to use. So what are other options where you could use cannabis?
Right. Like I finally found a vegan edible, because I can't do gelatin. That actually causes inflammation in my gut, more so than sugar, by the way.
Yeah.
And so I finally found a good vegan edible, but that took forever for them to make vegan edibles. I don't know why, but like everything had gelatin in it, which also, by the way, for anyone who is vegetarian, edibles were off the table for them.
Yep. Absolutely. It's so true. That's a really good point. I haven't really found anything that I also like follow a gluten-free diet because I need to follow but I think this is what I really like to highlight to patients when I talk to them. And I said, you know how we have a system that responds to morphine? And then we call it that we produce our own morphine, which is called endorphins. Well, guess what? We also have a system that produces their own endocannabinoids, right? So we start thinking about just even what we can do to enhance our own endocannabinoid system and how we can promote the more like production of our own endocannabinoids that perhaps we might not even need the plant cannabinoids from cannabis. So when we are consuming, when we include foods in our diet, and this is how my conversation is changing a little bit now in terms of the inflammation, anti-inflammatory style and way of living. So I don't like to call it diet. It's a way of living that is gonna make you feel good. It's gonna make you feel maybe less pain and less fatigue. But when I think about it, there's gotta be a good balance of those healthy fats, right? Like the omega-3s, even a good balance of omega-6, because without them, we cannot produce our own endocannabinoids. So then I start thinking about what are the foods that we're going to heal our gut, because we know that 70% of our immune system cells are in the gut. Also, the CB2 receptors, part of that endocannabinoid system, are mostly located in the immune system. And there's like evidence showing that if we start kind of stimulating, they're still trying to understand how we can stimulate those receptors that can help reduce inflammation. So if we even start kind of activating our own internal endocannabinoid system, and that includes following an anti-inflammatory way of eating, having healthy relationships, enjoying sex, implementing relaxation techniques, connecting your mind, your body. It's just beyond, really, it's beyond nutrition itself, right? It's about healing, and it's about using, like leveraging from that system that is within us to keep us in balance.
That is really amazing.
I love it. Leveraging the system. Leveraging.
So that's how I kind of begin my conversation when we are doing an anti-inflammatory nutrition, is that we're also feeding that endocannabinoid system. We want to keep it under control. That we want to stimulate, like the anandamide is one of the first endocannabinoids, and it means bliss. Is the one, they say that the runner's high is more related to the production of anandamide rather than endorphins. So like if you feel happy, and there's evidence, right, that when you like sex, when you're actually having orgasms, it reduces inflammation, it reduces pain. So think about that. It's not only about nutrition, it's a lifestyle that you kind of want to aim for. It's just passionate about it.
No, I love, first of all, I love your passion for it.
Yes, me too. Very much.
But it's very true. Like, I think people see it being just a diet, it being just, just food or just one aspect, but you do need to look at it as a life. You need to look at your lifestyle. You need to look at the changes you need to make in your body as a lifestyle.
That's very
because
true.
if you don't, then it's also easy to fail if you don't. But when you look at it as a lifestyle and you start feeling better, you realize, like, it's great. It's great when you start feeling better and you keep going.
Yeah, right. Because it's like, I'm feeling better. And I'll tell you something. And I don't have any evidence for this. And I share with my rheumatologist. 2 months ago, all my RA medications were stopped because I have bladder infections like back to back.
Oh.
But surprisingly, I really didn't have much pain, and I still continue to be active. And I even started taking more clients. It's like, what's going on here? And the thing that I've been consistent is with a very low dose of prednisone, because my evil, like my necessary evil, but very low dose, but my cannabis and different ways. So I was like, do I still need all those medications?
That is the question. I mean, I think Holly touched on it in the last episode, where she saw a lot of people in the group start using cannabis and suddenly, like, not suddenly, but over time, scale back on their meds or come off their meds completely because the cannabis was doing such a great job with their pain or their symptoms that really the meds just weren't doing as much for them. They were just able to scale back. And by the way, you know, the caveat in this is these are anecdotal. These are not, this is not scientific. There's, you know, there are some scientific studies out there. There aren't enough.
There's not. If we could federally legalize this, there would be so much more information.
Yes, because then, you know, we'd have a lot more research done on all of these. These are all anecdotal stories. We need more anecdotal stories, to be honest, because that could help with the legalization process. But I mean, you've talked about using oils, taking oils and stuff like that. And we've touched on like food a little bit. Are there some do's and don'ts for using cannabis in food or ingesting it or anything like that? Like advice you would give to people if they're like, well, I don't really like taking the oils. I kind of want to mix it in something to ingest it. Are there some do's and don'ts you would give to people?
No, so generally you always want to, if you're choosing to take the oils, sometimes the taste is not that very pleasant. So it tends to really absorb quickly, right? Like if you put it under your tongue, but if you don't tolerate it, then it would become officially inedible, right? So it will take, instead of taking maybe 30 minutes to start to kicking in, it's going to take up to 2 hours if you consume it and you mix it up with food. So I typically just mix it up with something that has fat in it, right? So I typically like to mix it out in yogurt, right? Yogurt is kind of my best bet, unless you're super. Maybe you can have guacamole. Really, it doesn't matter. But something that contains a fat, and if it's a healthy fat, it's a healthy oil carrier, is even better.
Okay. So could somebody use honey to mix it in with honey, like a little bit of honey, or is that a no?
Well, you could use the honey, but like, again, I really discourage the use of honey or any sugary. Like I use it, right? Like and this is the thing. I'd rather use honey or maple syrup than sweeteners, because sweeteners, we still don't know what is the impact in our gut microbiome. So I'd rather you have your maple syrup than having like a stevia, to be honest. So everything. So if anything that makes you feel good, like even just a little, like maybe rice pudding. Okay, you want to have rice pudding? Mix it up with your rice pudding in there. So as long there is some sort of fat in it, maybe even if you want to drink it, I don't know, maybe chocolate milk that you want to prepare, right? Or just simply milk. That I think that will make it better, and that's an option to consume that oil. I started to use more about making my own oils, and I actually like to infuse my olive oil, and I use it in my cooking.
There's a show on I don't even know what channel anything is anymore, where they do all the cooking, and they you know, infuse food with cannabis, and it's amazing, and like it's all gourmet and it's beautiful. So it's fascinating what they'll cook with cannabis. Like it's just, so I love the idea of infusing, and they use infused olive oils all the time.
We use it for everything else. Like we infuse it with garlic, we infuse it with like rosemary, with so many herbs. Well, cannabis is another herb.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Use it.
just infuse it, and you don't really get that taste. I know I typically use like a strain that is like a CBD, so that so I can use it in a daily cooking, right? So, and I'm not gonna get that kind of side effect. Like I'm working, I did my, let's say I have my egg in the morning, and I do like maybe a fried egg and a little bit of olive oil, but I don't want to have a little bit of THC that is going to put me to sleep around 2 o'clock while I'm working.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Sorry, client. Here I am.
So I'm napping here. So that's why we want to keep that balance. That if you're gonna use, personally, if I use for like cooking, a daily cooking, I use mostly a CBD flower.
Yeah.
That I think that's very important. Some other tricks like I kind of learned along the way. So we know about, and I think Michael explained that very well in terms when you need to decarb, use the carboxylation of your plant. But here's a little trick. So when you are going to decarb, so when it's a CBD flower or a THC, they burn at different temperatures, like at the decarb at different temperatures. Oh. So the CBD takes a little bit longer to kind of completely decarboxylate it, and THC is less. And also sometimes if you wanna, so I think the temperatures, I'll give you the times that I can't remember here. So typically, if you have a THC dominant flower, so you will want to decarb around like a 210 degrees like Fahrenheit or 90 minutes. But then the CBD will be a higher temperature, maybe at 295 degrees. And so about for the same amount of time for about 90 minutes. But if you have a balanced flower, like a 50-50 THC CBD, you want something around 230 degrees to 240 degrees for about 90 minutes. And there's also another way, it's like the partial decarboxylation, is that when you don't want to lose all the terpenes, so you want to do it for less, like for maybe half the time, so for 45 minutes or so. When you're decarbing and I use my oven, to be honest, I don't have any extravagant equipment. I just kind of use my regular equipment at home. But I make sure that when you're breaking the flour, you're breaking it with your hands. You don't use the grinder, because when you break it with your hands, like you're gonna, there's less damage to the flour and the cannabinoids that you'll find. So make sure that you do it like your hands, and then you maybe use some like a cornware that you can use the cover, so you don't lose all the terpenes, because if you leave it open, then you're losing all those terpenes that are so important. Typically, you can do the oils, like the magic, I bought the magic butter machine.
I have one that's just like that. Yeah, I got the Infusium. Yep, they're great, aren't they?
And they're amazing. Yes. But I didn't realize that you need to use so much oil. Like I have to make all these bags.
Yes. Because I know with the magic butter, you need 2 cups. With the one that I got, you just need 1 cup. But still, it's like, oh my God.
That's a lot.
It is. Because then you have to put a lot of cannabis in too, then it's expensive.
That's true. But typically how we work it, like you put like a 15 grams per a cup of oil.
Right.
And then when you want to make sure that, the flour, whenever it's coming from, that is a healthy flour, that there's no pesticides, there's no mold, maybe from organic sources, that you're able, that person or the dispensary, wherever you go, that they're able to give you a lab test report, where they can say, okay, this was tested, because, I don't know, it might get like crappy stuff and you're not really getting any medicine out of it.
Well, also, like if it's got pesticides and stuff, and that's stuff you're putting into your body. You're putting that into your body, and we have enough that we're inhaling and putting into our bodies. We don't need to add that to it.
Mm-mm. Exactly. So we need to minimize those toxins, because again, that's going to keep our endocannabinoid system healthy. Another thing that I found is that you want to keep your oils in a dark glass container, away from light and heat, because that further kind of deteriorates the oils and the cannabinoids. However, sometimes with CBN, right, like that's something, there's a degradation of like the CBD, and it's when like basically when the flower gets old, that's when you're getting more of that CBN, but we still can't measure that.
So what if somebody like makes, if they can bring the product home, the flower, and they make their own oils? I mean, do they keep that, like, I know in a dark place in a dark glass, but do they have to refrigerate that too, or no?
Ideally, yes, it will kind of extend the shelf life of that oil. If you keep it refrigerated. So it is true. So you want to make sure that always kind of use this, kind of sanitize your utensils. Sometimes you can maybe forget about that, right? Like and maybe we said, oh no, it could be any container. No, it needs, because you want to protect the plant. You want to protect the quality of those the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and so many other components that you want to take advantage of. So one of the things that you were mentioning that we use the magic, and something I learned recently is that when you use the crock pot or the double boiler system to make your oil, you you lose actually almost like 40% of the cannabinoids and the terpenes. Oh. When you use the magical butter machine, you lose about 20%. Yeah, so you tend to kind of preserve more with the and I can see it, right, because it's kind of more contained, right, and keep it so look at all the factors that actually it takes to really get all the benefits, or the medicinal benefits, that we don't really learn those things, like right, like it takes a lot of this networking, like the Facebook groups, that you learn so much from them too, and from other patients, so much.
And that's I think that's really important. Like, I learned stuff reading, I read your blog and I was looking at your website, and there's so much, that you're putting up and that I learned there, and joining the Facebook group that, Michael and Holly promoted and belong to. There's so much information there. Like I said it at the start, my head is like exploding with all this information. I just,
it's so interesting though, isn't it?
You start off with like, oh yeah, I kind of know, I go to the dispensary and I get my stuff, and, I kind of make this oil and whatever. And then people start talking and you're like, I know nothing. I know nothing.
That's so
dumb. True. I know zero.
I'm scratching my head.
I thought it was smart, and I'm really not, and whatever. But yeah, there's so much information, and you just want to make sure you're going to reputable sources, and that's the other side of it. You want to make sure you're following science. You want to make sure you're listening to reputable sources when you do this stuff. You don't want to explode your house.
Absolutely. And I think there are many things that I've been asked, are you going to grow cannabis? And I said, to be honest, no. I'm going to be one of those, I have a child, and not because I have the stigma. I will let him like garden the plants like any other plant. But I think it's all the extra, like and we are in Canada, like the climate really, unless you have those control conditions and how, I'm really not interested in learning and all that if I can really purchase
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
No, I mean, yeah, you'd have to like take the plant in the winter and put it in that controlled environment.
You really should have a tent, like a grow tent, because then you can really control the temperature and the lighting. And it's a pain in the ass. I mean, it's a lot of work. And I'm like, I think I buy shake. So shake is cheap. So I go to the dispensary and I get my shake. But I mean, growing obviously makes things much cheaper, but it's not always, I mean, like, even if I wanted to grow, we don't have one spot to grow. So there's nothing I could do anyway.
And whereas I like have an entire backyard that gets direct sun 90% of the year and has dirt where like weeds grow like weeds. So I probably could grow back there. I just don't know if I want to grow back there. Because it's also where the utility guy comes in and looks at the utilities. So do I really want him looking through that back there?
He might take half of it.
Exactly.
I said to all my peers, and I said, like, they said, no, like, grow it. And I said, no, I know that you're going to get it, because even like the raw cannabis has so many antioxidants and nutritional benefits that you got like the extra fiber, the chlorophyll, like all those anti-inflammatory and antioxidants, the CBA, CBDA, THCA, right? Like all those other cannabinoids that we know. And I know I wish I could have my raw cannabis, but I honestly, I don't have, I got too much to cope. I have to really pick my priorities, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the whole thing about cannabis. People just get really caught up in the, sativa indica aspect of it, but they're not looking at the plant as a whole.
Yes.
And what the plant as a whole can do. And there's so many aspects of it, and you just touched on it. There's, you have, oh gosh, there's so many nutritional aspects of the plant, plus like the terpenes, plus the sativa, plus the indica, and the effects that can have, the CBDA, the CBDN, the CBDG, I mean, the fiber of the plant itself. We need fiber in our diet.
It's true.
It's exactly. And then we know we don't need to know that we have more than like 90, there's like more than 90 or almost like close to 100 cannabinoids that they're still learning about, right? Like THC and CBD is only scratching the surface, really.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where when I see a cannabis and I have integrated it into like my nutrition lifestyle, is, for instance, I use it in my the flour itself, right? Like when it's dry, it's not decarb. So I'm preparing let's say my bowl of cereal. Like I have my granola, my yogurt, maybe some quinoa, hemp hearts, and then I sprinkle some of that flour on my
smart.
And I said, well, I'm getting it, right? Like I'm not getting any psychoactive effects because it's not decarbed. Right. It's just a flour, right? But I know I'm getting other antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. Can I measure those? No, right? But it's like, can you measure all the vitamin C that you're getting from an orange? Not really. No. Like, an estimation. This is how much vitamin C you could get from it. But there's other factors that can affect the concentration of vitamin C on the size, right? How much fiber. So the same principles kind of apply to cannabis. So I use it. So when I break it up, if I make my energy bites. So that's kind of my form of edibles. I try to use more of those nuts that contains extra omega-6, or a good balance of omega-6 and omega-3 that is going to enhance the effects of cannabis without promoting inflammation.
Well, it's like sprinkling furikake on top of your soup or on top of your noodles. Yeah. You can just sprinkle some flour on top of whatever, or like you make overnight oats so you can eat breakfast in the morning. You sprinkle some flour on top of that. Like, very simple way to get that extra antioxidant in there. That's just a wonderful way to do it.
And Christina, could there, I know I've seen people get those veggie caps, like just empty vegetarian capsules. Mm-hmm. Can you take just the raw cannabis and put it in the capsule and take it that way too, right?
Yeah, you can do it, but you want to make sure like to mix it with some like a oil, right. Like a carrier oil, and you want to go for like a kind of healthy, like you want to go for that maybe, but also like an avocado oil, coconut oil, like grapeseed oil. Those are like a pretty good oils that you can consume. Hemp oil even, because it's like even using the hemp products themselves, like hemp hearts, they're like almost designed the nutritional pack that is in there in terms of the balance of omega-6 and omega-3s, that they have a specific fatty acids that is going to synthesize the endocannabinoids, and they're going to help the kind of uptake the cannabinoids that we take from the plant. Wow. So even when I started to see nutrition from how I'm feeding my balancing system, I'm seeing it differently. I'm seeing it like beyond when you look at the anti-inflammatory and then autoimmune protocol. And when I'm starting to see, I'm feeding my system that is keeping balance among all the other systems, then that's how I'm reducing inflammation. How I'm pairing cannabis with other condiments or spices that contain terpenes to enhance that. So perhaps you heard of the golden milk, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So we're using like, you could use milk or a plant-based beverage. Typically, I like to use coconut milk, and you have like turmeric, you use your maple syrup, you use cinnamon, you could use a little bit of ginger powder in it. So once you prepare your milk, I have my recipe there and my story, and you prepare the milk, and then afterwards you add your oil, because you want to, that's another thing, you want to make sure that once you have prepared the oil, because that oil had been prepared at a certain temperature, you don't want to reheat it at a temperature that was above that, because you're killing those cannabinoids.
Christina, how did you I know that you went and you got your certificate to be a cannabis practitioner. How else did you learn? I mean, for people out there who are wondering, you have so much information and they feel like they don't have any. What is a good way to start learning about cannabis for people?
Oh, a good way. I think I can join in this. I guess it depends on where you're located, really, because sometimes I get questions from people in the US and they ask me about products, but I'm not fully aware of all the products out there in the US. But it's maybe easier for me to access what are the products available here in Canada, because we have them mostly online, or we have the dispensaries where we can kind of consult. So I think initially what it really helped me to learn about cannabis, not only aside from the programs, last summer, we got together with this group of women who were like medical cannabis patients and advocates. And then we created a group called Education. So Education is nonprofit now. It's all the ladies super involved. I'm just there. I support them and help when I can. But the mission of Education is to promote high quality education, cannabis education across the nation. So we're trying to really use as much as an evidence-based education, considering the Canadian regulations. So because sometimes you can go on the Facebook groups, but they don't always meet the regulations that may be established, let's say in the state or even here in Canada. So our mission is we're starting to prepare some modules, and with the IMD platform, when we're going to start creating some basic information for our cannabis patients. So that's one project that I was involved with, serendipity, and I love that word. It just kind of showed up there out of nowhere. And I started growing, and all these little tricks is that I learned from these ladies who have been growing, cooking with cannabis for years. So those things you don't learn at the certificates, the trainings. You don't. The more I spend time with them and I learn with them, the more passionate I get about this, the more sense of nutrition, the nutrition, the impact of nutrition can have in our bodies while we're trying to heal and while we're trying to live and thrive with a chronic illness.
Yeah. And I think that's really true. I think you can get a base education about cannabis and how it works with nutrition, but I think there's the practical side of it that you're learning from other people that have been involved in it for years. And again, most of what we're learning is just anecdotal because people have been experimenting with it. And, we just don't have much science associated, like studied science with it. So we're going a lot on anecdotal stories, but we're seeing the same evidence with anecdotal stories over and over again. Yeah, I think what you're saying is get involved, find groups that are experimenting and learn from them, learn from what they've found works, and then find what is working for you. And I think that's the best way to do it. But we've kind of run out of time. I could talk for hours.
Oh my gosh. I could listen to you forever, Christina. Like, I love what you're saying.
Thank you.
Like, this has been so interesting. And I'm just like, okay, I want to keep talking, but we have run out of time. So I want to thank you very, very much for coming on the show. If people want to know more, they can find you at arthritisdietitian.com. Mm-hmm. And also they can find you on Instagram, Facebook too. Am I correct? Yes. We will put your information in the show notes and on like all of the ways we promote the show. And we just are so grateful you came on. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Your story is so amazing. Yes. And we really encourage people to go to your website, find out more about you. You do work with patients and clients in Canada. So if you're listening in Canada, you can reach out to Christina. Obviously, if you've listened this far, you know she's amazing. And we thank you so much. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Great. Okay. You guys, thank you for listening. And you all have a great and fantastic week. Feel free to join us in the Facebook group, ask questions, tell us any stories you want to tell us. Obviously, the Facebook group is a great place to be. And we'll chat again next week. Bye, you guys.